Hey guys, welcome back to News,
the podcast.
And you're here with Bianca.
And Marley.
And you probably never thought why or how a punch could change what a witness remembers and which personalities stay accurate under pressure. We're looking at a 2017 study by Laura Payan and Dave Walsh, including a review on stress and eyewitness memory that helps explain the patterns.
And first, we have to start with the experiment. Students watched the same confrontation in two versions. One turned violent with kicks and punches, and the other one stayed as a heated argument.
Then afterward, they wrote down everything as they remember using structural recall. And they took a personality test called a hexaco that measures, by the way, it measures something: honesty, humility, emotionality, extroversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, and openness.
You know, violence led people to report more details, especially about the actions. More movement, more moments to describe.
But accuracy rates didn't drop. That's pretty important. More details did not automatically mean more mistakes.
Another significance is that personality really mattered. Across the whole group, higher honesty, humility linked with better recall of setting details.
That's really interesting. Like, I had no idea about that.
Yeah.
Then also, under violent conditions, the pattern shifted. I don't know if you knew that. Yeah.
No, that's crazy.
Who would have guessed? Openness linked with lower accuracy, emotionality dipped on object accuracy, and conscientiousness linked with higher overall accuracy.
So you're telling me during high arousal senses, who you are predicts how accurate you'll be.
Yep.
Which brings us to the bigger picture, which is...
Studies show stress hurts the memory, which some show it helps, some show no change. It kind of depends on how the stress is induced when it hits, whether physiology is measured, what kind of memory is tested, and how long until they recall it.
So if we're putting it all together, the 2017 study and the 2021 review point to interactions, violence can boost recall of central actions while personality steers accuracy under the stress.
And it really does. And think real life.
Do you think that eyewitness testimonies are a credible source, considering that stress and personality can affect the result or affect the testimony?
Yes, very much.
Do you think that it kind of affects the answer or can cause a bias during the court case?
Stress, maybe, but you see what you see.
That's true. All right, thank you.
And we're back.
And we're back. Breaking news.
Breaking news.
Welcome.
We're breaking the news. Yeah, we're breaking the news.
So much news.
Today
Today we're diving into something different, okay guys? Eyewitness accuracy. Can you really trust someone that says they saw something during a crime?
Duh. Exactly. It's really a question that psychologists have been asking for decades. Back in 1978, researchers Brian Clifford and Jane Scott ran a fascinating study published in the Journal of Applied Psychology called Individual and Situational Factors in Eyewitness Testimony.
That's right.
Yeah.
They wanted to know how things like stress, violence, and attention affect how well people remember what they saw.
Yep.
Because even though eyewitness sounds convincing, memory doesn't always work like a video does. It's more like a puzzle. Our brains fill in.
Clock it.
So
So then, what they did, Clifford and Scott showed groups of participants a short film, but they changed one key detail. One version showed a violent attack, while the other showed a non-violent event. Afterward, everyone had to recall what they saw. Faces, actions, small details, and all of that.
And the results? Pretty striking. People who watched the violent version remembered fewer details and made more mistakes than those who saw the calmer version.
What?
Basically, when stress levels went up, memory accuracy went down.
That's literally so crazy.
So crazy, I know.
That is so crazy. They also found that individual differences mattered. Some people are just naturally better at recalling visual details, while others focus on more emotional aspects. It showed that both personal traits and situation play a role in how reliable someone's memory is.
In the discussion section, Clifford and Scott warned that there's huge legal implications. Courts often rely heavy on eyewitness testimony, but this study showed that high stress and violence can seriously distort what people think they saw.
Well, hold up, because that was in the late 70s. But researchers kept digging into this. A 2004 study by, I believe that says Deffenbacher, and colleagues pulled together decades of data to test the same ideas. Does stress mess with the memory?
Exactly. You see, they conducted what's called a meta-analysis.
And what is that?
It's basically, they reviewed a bunch of studies on eyewitness stress to see the overall pattern. You know, their findings confirmed that Clifford and Scott suspected high stress consistently reduces the accuracy of eyewitness identifications.
But I heard that their methods were also pretty solid. They compared results from lab studies and real-world cases, looking at different levels of stress, from mild anxiety to what? Extreme fear.
Aye, that's crazy.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Could have fooled me.
Coulda fooled
Across the board, people under intense stress remembered less and made more errors than when identifying suspects.
What's cool is that they also noticed moderate stress wasn't always bad. It sometimes helped people focus. But once stress levels got too high, memory started to fall apart. That sweet spot in the middle seems to be the key.
And then, you said key or T?
Key.
Because that was pretty T.
Pretty T.
Yeah. In their discussion, Deffenbacher and his team argued that police and lawyers need to take these findings pretty seriously. Memory can be incredibly persuasive, but it's not always incredibly accurate.
So when you put both studies together, Clifford and Scott's original experiment and Deffenbacher's big review, it paints a clear picture. Stress, fear, and violence can change what we think we saw, even if we are confident about it.
And confidence doesn't always equal correctiveness. It's a reminder that human memory is flexible. In high-stakes situations like crime, it can play tricks on us.
So, the next time that you watch a courtroom scene and someone shouts, "I know what I saw!" remember, even science says memory isn't perfect.
And that's the end.
My name is Elizabeth Rollerson.
Thank you. In your history of working on trials or being on jury duty, in your own opinion, do you think that eyewitness testimonies are a valid source of investigation?
Okay, as a juror, I was on a civil trial that involved a car accident. And we had very vivid eyewitness testimony about the car accident, which was a tragic high-speed accident. And his testimony was incredibly accurate, we thought, as a jury. We mostly listened to him because he seemed to be the only one that had that kind of perspective on what had happened.
Right.
So I as a juror, I was very impressed with the eyewitness testimony that I experienced as a juror in a civil case.
Okay. Anybody else have a question? Or want to follow up with a question?
Follow up with a question referring to what you said.
Yes.
Was there anything that gave off that it wasn't a reliable source? Like, was it just one case of testimony that you guys heard, or were there multiple that were to back up what was?
There was only one eyewitness to
Okay.
this particular accident.
Okay.
Other than the plaintiff who was requesting damages. And so his perspective was very different than the eyewitness's perspective, right? Because the plaintiff was, biased in favor of his own case.
Right.
Which we
correct?
understand.
And the eyewitness
Yeah.
had no real interest in the case other than being an eyewitness. So I think that made him extra credible. That's what I would say. Not that the plaintiff wasn't credible, it's just that we
Considering
understand that he
yeah.
has an interest in the case.
Right. How long was it from when you were sitting on trial as a juror, and then from the actual accident? Like, how long?
It was about 3 years.
3
It was a
years.
long time. Right. It was
So-
a long time between the accident and when we heard from the witness.
So is that still something that they deemed as credible, even though it
There was
was
a
over
large
that
time
large
difference?
span of time?
Yes, but largely because his deposition had been taken much earlier than that.
Okay.
And his deposition and his testimony were in complete concert.
And
Were-
they
were-
lined
were
up
lined
even
up,
throughout
right,
all those
right.
years.
They didn't contradict each other.
Okay. In a case that, because is this your only jury duty that you've
It's the
done
only
before?
jury.
Okay. But through research, is that normal, like that you've obviously had as a paralegal, would that be something that's normal that we only take one account?
No, I don't think that that's normal. I just think that that's what happened in this
Due to the
particular accident.
circumstance?
As an aside, there were 3 people involved in the accident and 2 of them died in the accident.
Okay.
So we could obviously not hear from them. So the only other person was the plaintiff who was involved in the accident, and the eyewitness. Those were the only 2 people who were present at the time of
And
the
as you
accident.
said, he was biased towards it, obviously, because of kind of where he was coming
Or
from.
interested, maybe
Yeah.
is the word I might use. He
Okay.
had an interest in the outcome, as
Okay.
opposed to the eyewitness who had no interest in the outcome.
Because it was just a passerby.
While you were sitting in the jury with all your other fellow jury mates or whatever, did you guys ever get concerned that maybe stress on the plaintiff, is it? Or like even on the eyewitness and the time in between? Like, were you guys ever concerned that things might have been blurred or?
Again, I don't think that we were concerned with that with either of those witnesses.
Okay.
With the eyewitness, I think again in particular, it's because his deposition
Was so
testimony, which is sworn testimony,
Yes.
was in line with his live testimony.
I'm assuming the case took like that long to actually close. It was seeming as like something that we're just trying to like get done in a way and not kind of like looking for things that could make it wrong.
Well, I think that in a civil trial, you would have that deposition take place pretty quickly so that it would memorialize that testimony while it was fresh in the mind of the eyewitness. I don't know that that always happens, but it happened in the case that I was a juror on.
Okay, thank you so much.
It was a really interesting case. I'm glad.
It does sound pretty
It does sound interesting.
Thank you.
Okay, I had one question. Would you agree or disagree with Eyewitness being a valid source for?
I think that the general consensus is that eyewitness testimony is fairly unreliable.
And what would lead you to?
Particularly if they're victims of crimes or are on the scene of crimes, because I think those are very stressful situations in which their perspective may get skewed a bit.
Yeah, because one of the things that we were trying to look into was a lot of the times, like, your body tries to fill in the blanks of certain situations, and a lot of people can blank out due to their stress. We did see that sometimes in higher stress levels, there are some people who necessarily like remember more because of like more of like the fight or flight feeling of the reflex, but also understanding that too much stress can kind of cause there to be blanks and like holes in the story. So
This is just my opinion,
Yeah.
but I don't think that we're always good observers of things that are going on around us. And so
which makes sense.
if we're not precise, I think that there can be a lot of problems with eyewitness testimony.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
On what had happened. So I, as a juror, I was very impressed with the eyewitness testimony that I experienced as a juror in a civil case.
Anybody else have a question?
That'll work.
This is for the bloopers.
Why are you doing vertically?
Blooper! Don't switch it now. That just looks gross.
Oh my gosh, it's giving.
What we sound like talking.
Whoa! Why does it sound like something else?
Whenever those old guys are like trying to get a female nurse, you'd be like, hey,